Hello, my fellow humans, and welcome back to our podcast. Today's guest is Dr. Danny Brassell, known by many as the Jim Carrey with a PhD. He's an international recognized speaker, coach, and author who's energized more than 3,500 audiences worldwide. Danny has written about 19 books, including Leadership Begins with Motivation, Misfits, and Crackpots. And he's a co-founder of the Well-Crafted Story Workshop, where he helps leaders and entrepreneurs turn their personal experiences into powerful business stories that drive results. Dr. Danny Brassell, welcome to our show.
Awesome.
Today.
Thank you, Justin. I'm really appreciative I get to join our fellow humans. That was a great introduction. Thank you.
Right? You're very welcome. Sometimes people forget that we're human beings. I feel like I'm here to remind us that we are human beings. Our audience would love to know more about who you are, what are you doing out there, and who are you helping?
Thank you for that, Justin. If I was going to write an autobiography, it would be called Pivots, because I've lived several lives, it seems. 30 years ago, I was a reporter covering President Bush Sr. in the 1992 presidential election. It was a great job. I loved it. Got to meet every editor of every major newspaper, and one editor of a major daily offered me the city beat for $16,500 a year. And then a friend told me that they were hiring teachers in South Central Los Angeles for $25,000 a year. So I became a teacher for the noblest of reasons, for the high pay. And it turned out I fell in love with teaching. I've actually taught all age levels, from preschoolers all the way up to rocket scientists. I can make that claim because I used to teach engineering students English as a second language at the University of Southern California. And then in 2005, my wife and I attended a real estate seminar, which turned out to be a scam, and we lost everything. And it's all right. Don't worry, Justin. It has a happy ending. I mean, first of all, I found out that my wife is my soulmate. I put her through the ringer, and she stood right by me. She's an incredible human being. Second of all, I no longer make money my end-all, be-all, because I learned you can lose it just like that. Third, I try not to judge other people, because if I was somebody who looked at what I did, I would have said, well, you deserve that. But now I realize if you don't know everything about a person, you really don't know anything about a person. Fourth, I became a Christian, which I'm always embarrassed to confess, but the more I read the Bible, I'm not the first screw up to find Jesus. And fifth, I didn't want to declare bankruptcy, and my accountant said I'm going to have to make this much more money this year for me not to have to declare bankruptcy. And so I started speaking on the side, and I hit that number right on the number. Well, then the next year, Justin, he gave me a much higher number, and I hit that number right on the number. So in year 3, I thought, well, maybe I should set a higher number. And basically, during one of the worst economic downturns in American history, I was able to build up a very lucrative speaking business, which was rolling along great until 2020, when a thing called COVID occurred. And people asked me, how's your business doing? I'm like, oh, great. The way I just lost 200 speaking engagements overnight because they shut down the world, I'm doing great. Well, for years, Justin, people have been asking me to coach them in speaking, and I always resisted. Because as a teacher, I've always had a very high standard for my students. I actually will not let you fail. I stick with you like glue until you succeed. But then once I started working with entrepreneurs and executives and business owners, I found that they were highly motivated people, and they actually do the work, and I absolutely love it. And so I've lived all kinds of different lives. That's a very long answer to your short question.
I enjoy this. Amazing, especially the teaching, going from teacher to speaker to helping entrepreneurs. It's kind of all connected, you know. You're helping guide them to their next level in life, helping them get there themselves. I had a conversation with someone recently. They say that you're always grown out of things you've gone through, and that kind of makes you a better entrepreneur. You know how to get there, how to help other people.
Absolutely. Well, I prefer to learn from other people's mistakes than my own, but I guess that's how we all have to live our lives.
Well, I'm learning about that now. Why should I make these mistakes when there's so many people out there that made far worse mistakes than I could ever? Why don't I just learn from them? I like that. I don't even make my own mistakes. That takes too much hard work and dedication. You're working on building authentic connections with people and their audiences. Because that's one thing that I'm really truly about, is just trying to remember human beings, like I said earlier. We're trying to connect with other humans. I feel like that's what a lot of people want nowadays, to know who you are, what you're doing, and just connect with you on that level, then they'll want to work with you.
Absolutely. I mean, that's
Can you tell us more about how
yeah.
you're
So that's
achieving that?
probably so for your audience. The number one suggestion I always give to people to improve their speaking is stop talking about all your successes and start talking about your failures. Because not everybody in your audience has succeeded, but they've all failed. And the more you share your own failures, the more you're going to connect with your audience. I mean, you did a great job of actually describing, I always say that in the first 5 minutes of a presentation, you got to rap. So got to forgive me. I'm a former school teacher, so everything has to rhyme or be an acronym or something. And so RAP stands for relatability, authority, and purpose. So in the first 5 minutes of your presentation, you have to relate to your audience. The way you do that is by showing them that you're just like them. Then you also have to show your authority. And the way you do that is you got to show them that you've solved a problem that they're currently experiencing. And then finally, you got to show your purpose. And what that means is you got to show, why does this matter? And so if you can do all three of those things and connect with your audience, you're going to do much better. I'll give your audience a quick little exercise I do with clients.
Yes,
sit down in a
please.
comfortable chair with a pen and paper and a libation of choice. And for an hour, I want you to write down every single story that's ever happened in your life. And I don't mean the entire story. I just mean triggers like the time I locked myself out of the car in front of Costco, the time dad spilt mustard on his tie at that fancy restaurant. You'll find in an hour, you'll come up with like 500 of these stories. That's the first part of the exercise. The second part of the exercise, then I want you to think about, well, what's this story really about? Oh, this is a story about never giving up. Oh, this is a story about being accountable. Oh, this is a story about kindness.
Ooh.
And so on my computer, I literally have hundreds of folders with tens of thousands of stories. So whenever I have to speak to an audience, when I'm trying to figure out the different connection points I have to make, I'm looking for stories that attack those specific points.
Ooh, I like how you put that. Very well said. Because now that I'm thinking about
Good.
that myself, I never thought about doing it that way to connect with people. I find myself sometimes really hard to connect with people on certain levels. Wow. That's fascinating. 'Cause I've heard so many ways like you can get across your audience better. You find better ways to connect with them. And like you said earlier, present your failures, not your accomplishments. Not everyone is
Yeah.
there. And I actually feel that more. Like for me, like I show people my journey that I'm on right now. I'm working on accomplishing. And I feel like I connect to people better that way than say, well, I did this, I did that. No one really cares.
Yeah, you have to.
'Cause
The
that's not where they
the
are
best
just
way to connect. So, I mean, I'm working with a guy right now, and he's crazy, Justin. I mean, the guy, he climbed the highest.
This is
He
me.
climbed the highest peak on every continent. He swam with sharks in Madagascar. He did the Iditarod. And I tell
Yeah,
him,
you
nobody
me.
can relate to you. Those stories are crazy. The stories that everybody can relate to is everybody peed their pants in first grade and felt embarrassment. That's a good story. Like in your industry with cybersecurity and technology, I mean, not understanding all that jargon, everybody can relate to that because all of us had that moment, and it might not be in technology, it might be in something, but no matter what area, there's always people that speak above our heads because they're using very technical jargon. So those are the stories I love to really curate with my clients.
Yes, I actually talk about that all the time about not using technical jargon. And like being in my industry, it can be very hard sometimes to get out of your head and be less technical and be more connecting and trying to figure out by listening to them to figure out how you can talk to the people better. And it's going to be a
Yep,
challenge
definitely.
sometimes. 'Cause like my mind's up here, but everyone else's mind is usually down here. I've heard this saying where you gotta have to bring things down to like a fifth or ninth
Yeah.
grade reading level to really clearly get it across some people. And I've been learning that more. Just be patient, use your words not so intensely, and people understand you and
Yeah,
connect
you don't
with
want to
you
sound
more.
like the smartest person in the
Something
room.
like
You want to sound like the person that people want to hang out with.
yeah, I have a hard time with that sometimes, especially being on the spectrum. It can be a little harder.
You're in good company. Most of us are in the spectrum nowadays.
Some of our spectrum we gotta stay away from. I'm just saying. I'd love to know more about how, when you work with people, do they usually find you or like, are they like kind of word of mouth? And how does that kind of engagement look like?
Obviously, I have systems of how to connect to people, cold leads, and things like that. I'm very blessed. I get lots of referrals from past clients and masterminds that I've been a part of and things like that. And most of the people that I work with, Justin, they're people just like you. They're not, I mean, yeah, I've worked with some pretty impressive speakers. I don't like to, a lot of these people brag about, oh, I worked with this person and this person. They have to name drop. And I'm like, I think it was a conversation I was having with King Charles. King Charles and I, we both agreed we hate people that name drop. uh, I've worked with some. I have worked with some big speakers and things like that, but most of the people I work with are people just like you. They're people that are trying to grow their business. They're people that don't necessarily like to speak at all. Matter of fact, a lot of my clients are terrified about going on stage, and we work on how to create a presentation. My company is called the Well-Crafted Story Workshop it's with Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson and with Dave Ward. I call us the professor, the performer, and the producer because my background is in academia. Coach Jimmy was on Broadway, and Dave was a lawyer. So all of us come from totally different points of view. And what we're doing is we're helping you create what we call a well-crafted story. Politicians would call it a stump speech. In superhero movies, you call it your origin story. You can call it peanut butter and jelly. What this is this is a presentation that you're going to deliver again and again to introduce yourself to new audiences. And it's going to be flexible enough that it can be delivered as a 45-minute keynote to a ballroom, or it can be a 10-minute pitch to a boardroom, or it can be a 30-second elevator speech. It's adaptable like that. I mean, it can be one to many, one to few, or one to one.
I like how you put an origin story. We're going to stick with that one for now because I do like comments.
Perfect.
There's someone out there, they're like, I need to figure out how to create my origin story for my business, but I'm not sure where to start. And I know for myself, they just need to start somewhere. Because that's what I had. I just had to start. Like I started this podcast, and it kind of helped me to understand how to have these conversations and talk with people. But when you just talked about the origin story, I find myself, probably our audience too, trying to figure out how do I put my origin story together more so that it actually connects with people. I'm not bragging, or I'm not over talking, or I'm talking about the right points to help my business go forward, to actually connect with the right people.
Well, so we call it our 5 C's process. Everybody has their own little name for it. Our 5 C's are, for a good presentation, you need clarity, you need to be able to connect, you need to have good content, you have to have a clear call to action, and you have to have an emotional close. And so we'll take them one at a time. Before we ever write a word on paper of our speech, which I've actually never written a speech in my life, all I do is I figure out what I want to teach, and I illegally download lots of different images from Google, and those pictures actually help guide me on where I want to take my presentation, because it was Walt Disney who said people think in pictures, and I completely agree with that. My job as a speaker is to really paint a picture for people. And so before we speak, we need to have clarity, and there are 2 essential questions that you have to ask yourself when you're starting from ground zero. And if you can answer these questions, you're in good shape, and if you can't, you're going to have a difficult time with your business. And you'd be surprised, Justin, 95% of the people we work with cannot answer one or both of these questions. The first question...
I'm sure I may fall into that category too.
The first question is, who is your audience? And so, a lot of people will say, my audience is everybody. And my response to that is, well, if you're trying to reach everybody, you're going to reach nobody. The riches are in the niches. It's actually... I had asked you that before we went on air. I said, who is your audience? And you were very specific. I'm working with leaders, especially people in technology and things like that. That's great. The more you can condense that, the better. I mean, you can say, hey, my name's Justin. I'm working with technology leaders in Orange County, California, who like to surf. Well, that's a very specific niche, and it's very counterintuitive. A lot of people think, well, that's way too specific. I can't make any money that way. Are you kidding me? Justin, we worked with a woman a couple of months ago, Kathy. Kathy has the best niche I've ever heard of in my life. She makes saddles for professional polo players. I never even knew there was such a thing. And I asked her, how much do you make making saddles for professional polo players? And this was her response. Oh, about 800,000 a year. I'm in the wrong business. I need to learn how to make saddles for polo players. That's
Seriously.
incredible.
What's it called?
Absolutely.
Polo,
There are
saddle. Let me
so
write this
many
down.
different ways to niche down. So I love that. So the first question is, who is your audience? You want to get very specific. You want to think about not just demographics, but psychographics. So demographics are like where they come from, things like that. Psychographics are like, what do they think? What are the TV shows that they like to watch? What are the things they read? What things entertain them? Because the more you can figure out if this person loves watching Breaking Bad, I need to use some references to Breaking Bad in my presentation, so the person's like, oh, he watches Breaking Bad too. He's just like me. The more you can connect on those levels, the better. The second question is, what is the problem that you solve? And it's amazing to me that most people, they'll say, well, they'll give me a 30-minute answer. I'm like, if it takes you 30 minutes to tell me what problem you solve, I don't think you understand what problem
Yeah,
you solve.
who
Yeah, you need
does
to be
that?
very precise about that. I mean, this is why a company like In-N-Out Burger or Chick-fil-A or Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers is so smart. They only sell one thing. They don't try to be everything to everybody, and they're highly successful. The biggest problem I see when I'm asking people, what's the problem that you solve, is most of the time they don't tell me the problem. They tell me the solution they offer. So, for example, I was working with fitness trainers, and I said, well, what problem do you solve? And they said, healthy eating. Well, healthy eating is actually a good thing. That's a solution. Exercise is a good thing. Maybe the problem that you're solving is obesity. That's the problem. Um, when we work with financial planners, we'll say, well, what's the problem that you solve? They'll say, planning a good retirement. Well, that's a good thing. Maybe but the problem you're solving is having enough money until the day you die. Maybe that's the problem you're solving. So start thinking about it, because
So it sounds like an emotional thing more than a
well, we
logical
know. I
thing.
mean, I love that you say that, Justin, because we know that
Yeah.
humans, as you call them, are not logical creatures. They are emotional creatures. If we were logical creatures, we all would be driving electric cars that are very fuel efficient and environmentally friendly. But we don't do that. We buy
We get a
monster
lot
trucks
more
and
done.
Lamborghinis because we make our decisions based on emotion.
What you
Yeah,
talking about, Willis?
exactly.
Oh man, I'd love to know the next few steps. Please, I'm still intrigued here. You
I
have me
got you
hooked
hooked.
right
All
now.
right. Well, so
Yes.
once we can answer those very clearly, then we move into actually putting together the presentation. And any good presentation starts with connecting with your audience. We already talked about this. You did a great job of actually setting up the types of questions you should be asking yourself. I think it's really important when you're connecting with your audience to speak in language that your audience understands. And I'm always a big fan of, how can I be memorable? So in my own presentations, I'm a former teacher, so I'm going to get you singing, dancing, drawing, laughing, doing all kinds of things. I'm very interactive because I want to be remembered that way. I had recently read Yeah, I
Oh
read
wow.
Michael Caine's autobiography on acting, and he said something which was fascinating to me. When he first started out as an actor, he wasn't getting any parts. And so what he did is he bought these big, thick rimmed glasses. And after he bought those, he'd start auditioning, and casting directors are like, who was the guy with the big, thick rimmed glasses? He didn't need the glasses, but people
Ooh.
remembered him because of the glasses. What are you doing to make yourself memorable to your audience? I watched Meg Cabot once gave a speech I watched, and Meg Cabot, she wrote the book The Princess Diaries, and she always shows up wearing a tiara, and she says, oh, I'm the only person again wearing a tiara in the room. Well, I remember that 20 years later. I remember her wearing the tiara. So what can you do to
That's
stand
so
out from the
true.
crowd? This is critical in connecting with your audience. I mean, the first 5 minutes of your speech we know are the most important, because in the first 5 minutes, your audience is sitting there and they're making a decision. Am I going to be present, or am I going to be engaged? And so it's my job as a speaker to engage my audience the way that I like to do that. I think this probably separates Coach Jimmy and I from a lot of speaking trainers out there. A lot of people, the way they say to connect is you got to talk about the most tragic moment of your life. And that's going to really affect everybody in your audience. There's 3 reasons why I don't do that, Justin. First of all, the world just survived a global pandemic. Everybody's had a lot of bad things happen to them. I don't think we need another sad story. I think we need stories of hope in our society.
And you have to relive it also,
Exactly.
too.
That goes into my
on.
second point is we're teaching you, this is a story you're going to tell again and again. Do you really want to relive that? I mean, we have a friend, his daughter was murdered, and he tells that story again. And I mean, you have to be stronger than me to talk about the worst day of your life 1,000 times. I have no idea how he does that. And third, and this is where people get angry with me, I have one objective when I'm on stage. I want you to leave feeling better than when you came in. I want you laughing, smiling, happy. I think there's something admirable about that as a goal. I believe that these people that tell that same sad story again and again, by the 20th time they're telling it, now those are crocodile tears, and now they're being manipulative. And I'm not saying it's not an effective sales strategy. It's actually a very effective sales strategy. But I personally don't want to have to take a shower after I go off stage because I just manipulated my audience. There are actually ethical ways to get people interested in what you are talking about. And so, yeah, I want to have a good time. And when I'm working with my clients, it's really important, especially since most of the people I'm working with aren't speakers. They're nervous as can be. I'm like, are you having fun? I want you to have fun. That's an important thing. Life is really short, man. Don't be miserable while you're on stage. So I want you enjoying it. And this is one of the things that I admire about you, Justin. You did something which I really admire. So people always ask me, well, how do you get better as a speaker? I'm like, well, there's 2 ways to get better at speaking. First of all, watch lots of speakers. I watch at least 10 speakers a day. I watch politicians. I watch televangelists. I watch comedians. I watch them in front of big groups, in front of small groups, in front of men, in front of women. Here, I'll give you a little ninja strategy I like to share with my clients. I like to watch a lot of televised award shows because when the person wins the Academy Award, they only have 45 seconds to connect with their audience. Now, most people waste their time. They get up there like, I want to thank God, I want to thank the Academy. It's stupid. Nobody's paying attention. But every now and then, somebody does a remarkable job. So a few years ago, there was a guy named Joe Walker who won the Academy Award for Best Film Editing. Now, this is the Academy Awards. The important people are in the front of the auditorium, the actors. And you can tell they don't care about film editing. The camera's showing, nobody's paying attention. And Joe Walker gets up there. He's British, and he speaks very slowly and deliberately. And he says, a lot of people don't know this, but when phrased properly, the term Academy Award nominee can be used as an insult. Now the camera is scanning the audience. You see the actors kind of leaning in like, what's he talking about? He says, for example, yesterday I got in an argument with my 17-year-old daughter, and she said, well, Academy Award nominee Joe Walker. All of a sudden you see everybody laughing hysterically. He gets off stage. Denzel Washington wants to meet him. Sandra Bullock wants to meet him. Brad Pitt wants to meet him. Time magazine said it was one of the highlights of the Academy Awards. Well done, Joe Walker. In 45 seconds, you had that audience eating out of the palm of your hand.
See what
yeah,
you did
absolutely.
there.
So if you want to get better, the first way
Well
at getting better at speaking is to watch lots of speakers. The second way, I've been blessed to have lots of wonderful mentors and coaches throughout my career. One of my coaches was a guy by the name of Jim Rohn, and Jim used to say, you can't pay other people to do your push-ups. Translation, you got to do the work. The way you do the work is you got to do your reps. I mean, I tell people, even the smallest towns in America have a Lions Club, an Optimist Club, a Rotary Club, a Kiwanis Club. They got schools, they got synagogues, churches, temples, chambers of commerce. You're doing something which I admire. You created a podcast, and so many people talk about doing a podcast. You actually did it. This is what separates you from most people. Most people are just human beings, as using your terminology. You're a human. You're a human doing. You actually are doing something. You're not just sitting there on your butt. And I guarantee you, the first time you did your podcast, Justin, you stunk. And the second time you did your podcast, the second time you did your podcast, you stunk. But you didn't stink as bad as the first time. And now you've been doing this for a little while, and it's a finely oiled machine. You know exactly what questions to ask. You're very comfortable in the format. You're
I'm
getting
getting
there. You're
there.
getting there. I mean, we're all of us are a work in progress. I mean, my gosh, when the moment you stop learning is
Yes.
when you start dying. So I hope all of us live like a student, not like
Ooh,
an expert.
100%.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's
powerful.
like I mean, one of my biggest pet peeves out there are these speakers that say they're thought leaders. A thought leader. What's that? What the heck is a thought leader? I don't need another thought.
I keep seeing that term. I keep being put in
Don't
that
say you're a thought
category. I
leader.
don't
Say you're
get
a
that.
results leader. Hey, who needs thoughts? What people need are results. I'm a results leader. It's like a life coach. I'm
Ooh.
like, what the heck is a life coach? If you need a life coach, go to Starbucks. There's 7 of them sitting there right now. That's the most vague nonsense title I've ever heard. Talk about what do you want people to get out of working with you? You're not a thought leader. You're not a life coach. You're looking for a specific result. I mean, that's why people are listening to your podcast. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, it's entertaining, but
Ooh,
every
so
single
powerful.
podcast episode, you're offering all kinds of different insights. If I get one thing from your podcast every week, time well spent.
Ooh, that was so powerful. I love how you put that. But it's so true. Thought leaders and life coaches. That's why I never really liked
Yeah,
those terms. I'm seeing those categories popping up or people reaching out. Oh, so I see that you're a thought leader in cybersecurity. Let me talk. I'm like,
yeah,
who are you? Where are you coming from?
that's
What's
right.
happening?
That's right. It's all in the terminology. I mean, you live in
Oh
Southern
man.
California. There's no such thing as fog in Southern California. There's a marine layer. There's no such thing as
Yeah,
road construction. There's landscaping ahead. It's all in how you phrase things.
that is so true. You just phrase it correctly. You can't just build it and they will come. I've actually heard that lately and it actually made more sense to me. Having this conversation with you now, it makes even
Good.
more sense. Not just build it, but connect with them on that emotional level. Be that person that you want to go to. Yeah, that's very well said. I appreciate that. I kind of lost my train of thought for a minute. I was just like engulfed in
Well,
that.
there
It
you
was
go.
just so much and so powerful. And mine just thinking and just taking it all
I'm so
in.
deep.
I'm like, I think those things, but I could not have said it
Well,
better myself. I guess that's why I have you on here to
there you
do
go.
that for me. You were saying earlier with the podcast. Okay, I started this. I was struggling, like just
Hmm.
doing cold calls. I hate reaching out to people. I hate interrupting their days and then trying to get to like gatekeepers and try and sell to people. And that was frustrating me. So I'm like, you know what? Let me just start a podcast. I can talk to people that way. Maybe this will work. And I started learning, like I found my voice in doing that. I was like you said earlier, it sucked at first. I was standing there like, yeah, my name is Justin. Well, and it took me time from those episodes to now to get to this by doing the reps, putting
That's
the
right.
work in. And like, I didn't anticipate it would turn into this. I don't know what it's going to turn into after this,
But you're
you
you're
know,
doing something.
by
Most
having
people
these
never do anything,
conversations.
Justin. That's why I admire you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've talked to a lot of people like on these sites. They're like, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing that. Oh, I should do that too." I'm like, "Why aren't you doing it? Why don't you just get up and go do
Well,
it and see
I'll
what
tell you
happens?"
why they're not
You
doing it
sit
because they're
there, you
thought
think
leaders. They're
about it,
thought leaders. They're thinking about it, but they're not doing anything.
about it, leaders. Like you said, do about it, leaders. Woo, that is some powerful stuff. And you're talking about this guy when he went on stage and how he turned the awards to everyone to look at him and really laughed
Hmm.
after that. I've heard that. Forget another guy's name. Oh, I can't remember his name right now. He's an Asian guy with
Uh-huh.
glasses, but he talks about when you're standing there to speak slowly and like this so people understand you and not so fast. And it's more impactful. I'm still working on that,
Well,
clearly.
he's partially right on that. It depends. There's lots of different
Yeah.
strategies out there. You speak quicker when you're talking about happy things, but when you're talking about those moments in your life that were turning points that hurt you, you slow down your speech. You're getting the audience to follow you. That's what you'll do with your case.
Never quite understood that. Yeah, because I know for myself, I need to figure that out and learn that because I talk really fast sometimes no matter what I do. but I'm learning sometimes that if I slow down, that my thoughts will kind of catch up to me. So I'm not like over talking over myself, and there's all this information's coming out. So I've noticed I connect with people better that way. They listen, they're engaged, like you said.
Yeah, but you're very real, Justin. You're authentic. I mean, I was speaking in India to a school, and I got all the kids all pumped up. And after the presentation, kids are coming up to me saying they really enjoyed the talk. And all of a sudden, there's a little boy. He's about 6 years old, and he has tears in his eyes. And I noticed he's missing his left arm, and he looks up at me. He's like, "How can I succeed?" And so I crouch down. I get down to his eye level. I'm like, when I was your age, I went to 18 different schools before I was 12 years old. Everybody called me stupid because I stuttered. And eventually I went to a school and a teacher, she worked with me one-on-one, and she would sing things to me. And I found that I could sing back without my stutter, kind of like the movie The King's Speech. And eventually I lost my stutter and I became a swan. But I looked at that boy in the eyes and I said, isn't it interesting that the little boy that everybody used to call stupid because he couldn't talk right now gets paid ridiculous sums of money to travel the world to do what? And he gets the biggest grin on his face. He's like, speak. I'm like, don't let anybody ever tell you what you can't do. I mean, I had this problem. My youngest daughter, she shared a goal with a teacher the other day, and the teacher said she can't do that. And it really bothered my daughter. And I said, just so you know, when a person says you can't do it, what they're really saying is they can't do it. Don't let other people's limitations screw up your life.
That is so true. I see that so much too. People give the wrong information, and usually it's coming from a hurtful, hateful, resentful, I couldn't do it, so you can't place in their life.
Yeah, how many of your friends told you have been experts about podcasts, but they've never done a podcast? You're the expert on the podcast. I mean, the people that know it all usually know nothing.
I have people coming up to me telling me, oh, you should try this. You should do this. Try this. And in my head, I'm thinking, first, have you tried it? Have you done it yourself? And I was having this conversation with someone else earlier about you should never reach out to someone for help who hasn't actually done what you're trying to do or not been on that same journey of where you're trying to go. So you don't ask a manager who's yelling and screaming how to be a great leader for your company. I mean, I'm just a guy on YouTube. What do I know? Yeah, but it's so powerful, and it's sad. Sometimes we get the wrong advice from people, but people take that to heart. Like you were saying earlier about your stutter, I can really relate to that because I might still have it, but I had like a really bad lisp growing up. So I had I was deaf. I have ear surgery, so because of that, I couldn't pronounce my words or hear myself talk well. And now I'm talking on a podcast as clear as I can be, I guess.
What's great though, Justin, is you don't run away from it. I always tell people, this is actually a good strategy that you're using too, is never run away from what you perceive as a weakness. Turn it into your super strength. You were talking about you like comic books. Make it into your super strength. So this is why I like watching comedians, is if you want, they're the best at this. So Kevin Hart is a short black guy, and so he makes a lot of jokes about being a short black guy. Jim Gaffigan is a big fat white guy, so he makes a lot of jokes about being a big fat white guy. Whatever you perceive as the weakness, turn it into your strength. So somebody was asking me in an interview the other day, they said, well, what would you have advised President Biden and President Trump to do when they were running for president? I'm like, well, if I advised President Biden, I would have said, make fun of your age. Because if he kept on making fun of his age, I can't remember anything, I'm so old. If he makes fun of it, nobody else can make fun of it because he's taken it in.
True.
If I was advising President Trump, I'd say, make fun of your humility. Nobody is humbler than me. I'm the most humble person on the planet. By making a joke,
I feel like he's done that.
By making a joke out of it, you take away. I mean, I learned this. If you watch the movie 8 Mile, at the end of 8 Mile with Eminem, I'm going to establish how white I am right now because I can't remember what it's called, but he's got to do like a rap off. It's him and the black guy, and Eminem has to go first, and Eminem's buddies are like, oh man, he's going to diss you. He's going to say that you live in a trailer and your mom is a whore and that crack and all this stuff. And so what does he do? He gets on the microphone. He's like, you're going to say that I live in a trailer, that my mom's a hoe. And like the black guy doesn't know what to say because he just said it all. He has nothing to attack him on.
So
It's
true.
very counterintuitive. Take that weakness, turn it into your strength, and people are going to love you. I mean, I had a professor in college, my
Yeah.
statistics professor. He was about 4 feet tall. He was from Britain, and his first class, he tells us, he's like, I've been in America for 25 years. Went to the University of North Carolina on a basketball scholarship. And all of us started laughing because he's 4 feet tall. And I loved him from that point on. Like, he's taken what people would perceive as a weakness. He's like, I'm going to throw it right back at you. And it's a great strategy for people. I mean, I was working with a woman the other day,
I
and
agree.
she's nervous as can be on stage. She just shakes. And I said, well, tell everybody. Just say, I'm as nervous as can be. I'm shaking, because this is what people don't realize. Audiences are cool.
Take back
Audiences are
power.
cool. They actually want you to succeed. There's nothing worse than being uncomfortable because you're watching a speaker that's having a hard time. But when a person confesses to you that they're nervous, well, now you're going to root for them. Hey, no, this is a safe place. They're going to start clapping for you. They're smiling a lot more. And she did it, and it worked. It worked to a T. Just embrace whatever you think that weakness is.
I've always seen it that way, and I've done that, but never had to really put into words like that as well. But yeah, it's that you're taking back that power, then no one can pretty much be unstoppable. People can't use anything against you. And like you say, the girl went on stage. I kind of have that sometimes. Like, I'm good at
Mm-hmm.
speaking one-on-one, then maybe 1 to 2, 1 to 3. But then it's a big group, I kind of like shut down, like, okay, bye. Like, what?
Well,
So it can be very
don't. I
hard
mean, and
sometimes.
you're
How
in
do you
good
learn to
company
get
on
past
that, Justin.
that?
I work with so many people. I mean, I worked with I'm not going to say who it was, but a very famous athlete. And
Guy.
I mean, he is terrified on stage. And he was so terrified that I finally just said, look at the floor. Look at the floor. Tell everybody that you can. I don't even want to reveal the sport. You can win championships, and direct your team with no problem,
Let's say it was
but that you're
wrestling.
nervous as can be. And so you're going to tell your stories looking at the floor. And everybody loved it. Everybody loved it. Just admit to it. There's nobody that's authentic anymore. I mean, this is why I love Rory
True.
McIlroy winning the Masters. He started crying, and everybody loved it. This guy had so much stress, and he was letting it out. That's why I love sports. It's really one of the most authentic things you see. I mean, that's why I have no interest in like political debates. They're the most everything is orchestrated. There's nothing real about any of them on either side. I don't care. It's
Yeah.
just it's like a show. It's just scripted television. I love those moments though that are actual, real, authentic moments. That's why my wife, she's like, "Why do you watch sports?" I'm like, "Because at any moment something extraordinary can happen. You never know what it is." It's great. I love it.
I know people are like looking for that so much more now, the authenticity. I keep hearing about that. And like how I started the podcast to do that too, to connect with people. People want that so much more. Because everyone like wears a mask, or they've worn the mask for so long, they forgot how to take it off, or where the button is, or how to put, they just forgot. And they've been stuck with that on them now. And it's just, you see it in people, and that kind of manifests in many different ways among people
Absolutely.
too. And it's just, come on, guys. We're making our lives so much harder as humans, entrepreneurs, speakers. Just gotta get out there, roll the dice, and never think twice. That was a
Love
reference to a song.
it.
Woo! Dan, it's been a really pleasure having you on here today. It's been an amazing talk with you. Very
Thank you
authentic.
so much, Justin. As a thank you to you and your audience for having to listen to me today, I want to give everybody a couple of bonuses. So if you go to freestoryguide.com, again, free story guide like a tour guide, freestoryguide.com, I'm going to give everybody their own well-crafted story blueprint. What this is the actual process that Coach Jimmy and I take our clients through in creating a presentation. What this does for you is it takes the guesswork out of your presentation. It shows you exactly why you do what you do when you do it. And what this means for you is the peace of mind that you have a better way, a more effective way to connect with clients and have a greater impact. You can get that at freestoryguide.com. And I am just so grateful to you, Justin. I admire you so much for all that you do, and I hope you keep on doing it, my friend.
Thank you. And I'll put that down in the show notes as well, so they can click on it for a lot
Cool.
easier access. And I appreciate your time again. Is there anything else besides that you'd like to leave our audience with today?
I was teaching my little ones or my older ones as they exited my classroom. I always had to tell them the same refrain. I reminded them, remember, kids, education is valuable, but execution is priceless. Knowledge is not power. Only applied knowledge is power. Knowing what the right thing to do and doing the right thing are two very different things. So let's go out, do the right thing, and make this world a better place.
That was amazing. That was truly profound. I love how you put that. Damn, that changed my life just now. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that part over again. I can get that in my mind, into my mindset, so I can change the way I think and do things. That's
Nice.
so true. Apply. You can do so much, but if you don't apply, it's like people used to talk about. You read all these books, you watch all these podcasts. But okay, you're watching and reading them, but then you don't apply any of that to your life or to your business. What are you doing it for? And that right there clicked with me
Great.
on that. Damn. Well, Dr. Danny Brassell, thank you so much for that knowledge and being so insightful.
Thanks for all
today.
you do, Gus.
I appreciate you coming on here. Definitely have to have you on
Sounds
here
good.
again.
God bless.
You too. Have
You
a
too.
wonderful day.